Hello, this is What I've Been Thinking. I'm your host, Marcus Cage. In this video, I ran across a podcast which I watched with the famed teacher Jane Elliot. For those of you guys who are not familiar with Jane Elliot, she's famous for the experiment, blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment. And that experiment was, if you're not familiar with it, it basically separated the kids into those two groups to basically do a race exercise, showing how racism works. Um, of recent days, she's gotten quite a bit of fame, especially with this whole Black Lives Matter movement has been going on. She's been on tons of interviews and things like that. And I mean, her spill is normally the same, that people just need to be taught about, that we're all one race. And then that will just magically solve everything. Well, this long form discussion on a podcast called Socks and Sandals, or I keep calling it a podcast. It's a YouTube channel, Socks and Sandals. The gentleman that runs the show, and then he had a guest host with him. They did a very good job asking a bunch of questions, and so I do recommend that you guys go and view that episode. Just look for Jane Elliot and Socks and Sandals.
Well, Jane, I believe that education is definitely foundational, but it is one of many components to be able to eradicate racism. But I think a lot of times people perceive racism to be mistreatment, But what I've discovered over the years is that racism isn't merely just mistreatment based upon the color of your skin. Racism is a symptom. It is a side effect of what we're really facing. Racism really is white supremacy. Like, there is no mistreatment of color if there was no supremacy, no hierarchy of colors. And so white supremacy isn't just ignorance. It isn't just mistreatment based upon skin color. It's also the entertainment system, which is dominated by people pale-faced ignorance. It's also the economic system, which is dominated by pale-faced ignorance. It's also labor, politics, religion, sex, war. It's all these systems, and so one can be educated properly, but also they go to church and they're going to be miseducated. They go to school or they go to work, they're going to be miseducated. And so, or they're just going to be socialized in a way that is going to basically undo or go against everything that Teacher Jane just taught them. So how do we take it a step further from just focusing on the mistreatment, but also dismantling the systems that uphold the beliefs?
I think that's what these smart young people are going to do, what the rest of us haven't been able to do. I think someone, somewhere, somehow has gotten to them and said, look, you're all in the same boat together, and this boat is going to sink unless we plug these holes. And the holes we're going to need to plug are economics and labor and government, and all those holes have to be fixed. But you will not fix them until you get these people educated to the fact that there's only one race, and this idea of white superiority is a flat-out lie. We've got to educate people, and you don't like the word education, then you've got to pound it into people that there's only one race and we're all members of it. And that person that you are going to abuse because you are ignorant about skin color, you're not going to abuse that person because that person is one member of my race, which is a human race. And I will not tolerate that. Now, that may sound old-fashioned and that may sound simplistic, but you will not cure these other problems because they are all based on race until you cure the problem of racism. You won't do it no matter what you do. And if you read the color law, you'll realize why you won't do it until you get people educated to the fact that there's only one race And you cannot discriminate against people because of your ignorance about skin color. It's not about skin color. It's about ignorance. And ignorance means not knowing. So most people just do not know. I'll never forget my dad when he saw the first film that was made in my classroom. He's 59 years old. And after he was a farmer. He'd been a farmer for years. He had raised 6 kids and lost 1. So he had 7 kids and lost 1, raised 6. After it was over, this 59-year-old man in his blue overalls, the farmer, stood up, took his red handkerchief out of his back pocket, wiped his nose, blew his nose, wiped his eyes, and said, "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old." Now, after that, you could not have my father around if you were going to tell a racist joke. He would look at you and say, "Are you going to finish that? You sure you want to tell that? Because if you do, I'm going in the other room." And he'd go in the other room when the boys started telling a racist joke. He wouldn't explode, he'd simply walk away. We need to simply walk away from those who are determined to perpetuate the myth of white superiority. We do not elect a person to say, "Well, there's good people on both sides in that Charlottesville mess." No, there weren't good people on both sides. There were good people on one side and the bad people on the other side. And they were bad because they'd been miseducated and they thought that they were superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. Can you think of something more ignorant than that?
This next clip that I'm going to share with you is going, I believe it's some of her comments as far as white women in politics and how they handle things. I thought it was pretty entertaining, so I wanted to pull that clip out for you guys to be able to see it.
So how do we just let them go, or how do we encourage them to stay in the fight?
Well, first you have to decide whether they're really going to finish the fight. You see, for many of us pale-faced women, we'll jump on a project and stay there for a year, maybe for 2 years. But if it isn't ended at the end of 2 years, we'll jump on something else. We'll jump in and out of causes. No, black people, brown people, Native Americans can't jump in and out of what they are. They are there, and that's where they're going to be, and they have a right to have this country treat them according to our principles. They have that right, you have that right, I have that right. But as I get older, I realize that I have fewer and fewer rights in that area. I know that very well, and so I have to be really mouthy to make people know that I'm here. Don't mess with me. Do not do that. And don't mess with people, other human beings, for some silly idea like white supremacy. It's a lie. We have to teach people that it's a lie. And if we would start, for instance, if I were going to go into the classroom, into a first grade classroom or second or third grade classroom this year, I would have every kid have a box of Crayola crayons. I had everyone take out, we're going to learn the colors for sure, take out the white crayon. Now, boys and girls, put it against the back of your hand. Now, how many of you are white? And immediately, when you tell that kid that this is the white crayon, and he puts it at the back of his hand, he knows that you can't be trusted. Because you just lied to him. This is white. This isn't white. So immediately, when you teach that, you are creating cognitive dissonance in kids. Here's what I say, but here's what is true. And you have to tell the truth, and we have to start telling the truth. If we would just tell the truth in that one area, think of the difference we could make in how a child feels about himself, herself, or the children, the rest of the children in the room. Look, it's every one of you.
This last clip is the one which actually made me decide that I needed to share these clips in this interview with you in the first place. Remember, again, this is Socks and Sandals YouTube channel where I viewed this and ran across the interview. In this last subject, the conversation of reparations came up, and I guess I will let you guys hear what she had to say, and I will let you hear the exchange back from the host responding to her point of view and perspectives on how those things should be handled. So I will let that play, and then afterwards I will pick that up and give you guys my thoughts on the whole interview in entirety, and just some of my thoughts on the viewpoints that the teacher, Jane Elliot, had. The subject of white population declining actually came up. I'm not going to make very many comments on that at all. I'm going to let Jane Elliot's comments speak for themselves, and then I will let you.
Their idea of white supremacy then has to go back and dress the way they did in the 15th century, travel the way they did in the 15th century, get their information the way they did in the 15th century, eat the way they did in the 15th century, and have that kind of medical system. I think if we're going to live in that business, then that's what we need to do. And you know, and I know, that the reason we have made progress on the face of the earth is because of the brilliance of a whole lot of people of color.
All right.
Jen, don't you think that what's going on and what has been going on is not necessarily ignorance because nobody told me any better? Because you just explained, and also I've seen in the exercises that you do, people just flat out deny their position, or that they've been, or that someone else's discrimination is worse than theirs. But doesn't this all come down to survival? You know, doesn't this really come down to the fear of genetic annihilation? If I allow myself, if I allow everyone that is melanated an equal playing field, a level playing field, then I won't be able to compete with them. I won't be able to stay in control and stay in my privileged, nice position, because no group wants to give up their privilege. And so isn't this about, you know, if I keep them here, then I can survive, because I know that my numbers are down all over the globe. I know that we're not procreating and reproducing. I know that the sperm count is low in males of European descent all over the globe, and it's been decreasing. Just like Brexit, I know if I continue to let immigrants come in, then melanated people are going to outnumber non-melanated people. They outproduce us. So isn't this more or less about genetic annihilation, not just because I'm...
Do you even think that the average person walking down the street even knows genetic annihilation?
No, it's subconscious. It's subconscious.
Wait, we can talk about subconscious bias and conscious bias until hell freezes over. But that won't solve the problem. And we can use words of 4 and 5 and 6 syllables, and that solves the problem. You're going to have to talk in the language that the average human being in the United States understands. And here it is. You either change your behaviors today, or you're going to suffer greatly tomorrow. Now, if you want your children to survive in the future, you better change your ideas about miscegenation, because the hole in the ozone layer is getting larger and larger. And as the hole in the ozone layer gets larger and larger, more and more sunlight enters our environment, and more pale faces are going to suffer from melanoma, which is a skin cancer which can spread throughout your body, which happens because you don't have any protection from the dangerous rays of the sun. Now, you can tell that to people in 1 and 2 and 4 syllables, and they can understand that, and then they can say, oh my God, maybe I better be nicer to these people who are going to be running this show in the future. If people your age, who are pale faces, want to survive to be my age, they better change their behaviors now. Because by the time you're my age, you will be in a majority group instead of a minority, color-wise, in this country. That's a fact. We have to stop. In the first place, we don't teach real history. We teach a lie that we made up to make white folks feel good. We don't teach history.
But being the majority doesn't mean that you have power. What? Being a majority has nothing to do with a power structure, a power dynamic. The pale faces in South Africa have never been the majority, but they have all the power.
But it can have something to do with it if you have intelligent, if you have civilized and educated human beings, if you have people who know the truth. We don't teach history.
Well, being the majority doesn't mean that you have power. What? Being a majority has nothing to do with a power structure, a power dynamic. The pale faces in South Africa have never been the majority, but they have all the power.
But it can have something to do with it if you have intelligent, if you have civilized and educated human beings, if you have people who know the truth instead of the lie, if you stop allowing your morals to be dictated by the picture of a white man hanging on a cross. That might be a step in the right direction if we would teach people that in the Bible it says that Jesus had woolly hair and feet of bronze. We might think about that occasionally. This miseducation starts pre-birth and it continues until after you're dead. We need to make pale-faced people aware of the damage that is being done to them by their own ignorance. And I'd really love to say that we can solve this problem by talking about the past, or that we can solve this problem by making payments to black people. But if you're going to do it that way, then first you have to pay off the Native Americans, whose land we took, and whose homes we took, and whose people we killed in the millions.
No, they got paid. They got paid.
You'll have to.
And they have land.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
They have land. They have reservations, and they also have
Oh,
economic.
yeah, and would you like to talk to me about reservations and what a wonderful payment that is? Would you like to be on a reservation? Would you be willing to, would all the black people in this country be willing to take a reservation?
That's what the Nation of Islam was asking for.
Well, was that a smart thing to do? I don't think it was.
It depends on who's driving that car, who's the captain.
Go to a Navajo reservation and see if you think you'd like to live that way.
No, I've been to reservation. I've been to reservation in Montana.
Did you think it was a really comfortable place to be?
Say it again.
Do you think it was a really comfortable place to be?
The way that they were living, no, I wouldn't live like that.
Oh well, okay.
But the whole planet is a prison for black people. So like it can't get any worse for black people. So you can't. I'm not gonna look at somebody else and say, oh shoot, like I don't want my own land. I don't want a shot at that. I would never say that. A black person is not gonna say I don't want to have a chance to create my own civilization and my own society. Everybody wants that chance. And everybody deserves that chance. And black people deserve reparations in the form of land, in the form of cash payments, and in the form of some type of tax consideration. So yeah, it may not have worked out for the natives, but this is 2020. And this is a totally different group of people. And everybody is not the same. Everybody's leaders are not the same. And so I'm not gonna judge, or I'm not gonna project onto black people in America, well, this is what happened to the natives. You don't want that, and I'm damn sure not gonna say, well, we need to pay the natives. The natives already got paid. They already made their deals. They already signed treaties. They've already done what they did, and if they squander their opportunity, that's on that group. Now it's time for this group to get its opportunity and to get its reparations.
But you are saying exactly what I have heard white politicians say. We got ours, now you got yours. You get yours. We worked hard to get what we have. We suffered to come over here. We were willing to kill people in order to have this land. We got ours the hard way. You get yours the hard way. You're saying exactly the same thing. You're saying the same thing that Palefaces have said to Native Americans, and they're saying it to you, and now you're going to say it. This is not the solution.
Fill in the comments how you feel as far as this whole as far as all the clips that I share with you and how you felt that interview went and your thoughts as far as the topics that we're going over. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Okay, now in closing, let's try to take some of these points which she brought up. One of the biggest ones I feel like that sums a lot of this down very easily is the notion that, okay, let's back up just a little bit. Whether we are one race or not, throughout our society, every day, family members kill other family members. They rob from other family members. They cheat other family members. So even if we all are one family, that still does not solve the problems which we face in a lot of our society. It does not stop. Family members go to court all the time for ripping each other off through business deals, through land deals, through all kinds of things. So even if we were one race, in her theory, that doesn't just, it's not a magic bullet that erases things. One of the comments which she said in there that just kind of got under my skin is because a lot of times when you deal with these people who try to come in and speak, like this high authority, they will say one thing and then turn right around and undermine their own credibility. I mean, there's points in there where she says, well, yeah, white people can't understand what it's like to be, a black or Latino or Muslim or whichever group you fall into, even if that's trans, LGBTQ. I mean, that's all of the people I've named are all living with something that they have to deal. I mean, not in a bad way, but we're living with a different lifestyle and different life experiences that we face on a daily basis, and we don't just get to turn it off whenever we want to. I don't just get to stop being black sometimes, so if I'm driving through a certain neighborhood, I don't have to worry about the police. It doesn't work that way. The same way, if you're attracted to somebody of the opposite sex, and that's what is deep in your core, you're going to feel persecuted, being in places where that's not allowed, and vice versa. And we can go down all the different chains. If you're a person of Arabic faith, especially if you're a woman and you're in Arab or religious clothing, how people can discriminate you and treat you different ways. And my point in that is, there are certain groups of us which we don't get to turn off, the grievance factor, because we're always dealing with these different persecutions. And she talked about like how white women can just jump on a cause, and that's what happens a lot of times. We see that a lot in politics. We have people who get on and yell at me and tell me as a black man that how I should think on certain things, or how I should view on certain things, or if I do this is in my best interest. In this interview, she actually brings up the fact that white women do that, and she does that herself. And then she turns around and then tells two black men what they should be thinking or how they should handle something. I mean, I'm sitting there like, how do you just right out of your mouth say we need to listen to black people, and then turn around and say, no, we don't need to listen to black people, or start arguing with them about what they say that they need for themselves? If I lived in your house, I can understand what groceries you might need, what cleaning supplies you might need. If you need new linen, if you need your clothes washed, I would understand that if I lived in your house. If you don't live in somebody's house, you can't start making those declarations or tell them how things need to go or what they should accept or any of those things, because you're not living in their house. You're making an assumption from the outside on what you think they should do. To me, it doesn't get any more supremacist than trying to tell some other person, who is an adult, mind you, that they don't understand what is going on with themselves well enough that you need to tell them how it needs to go. And then I don't know, maybe I just see it this way, but if you look at the way she responds and the way she sits there, it's such an arrogance. Somebody's inviting you on their platform, and I don't care, even if I'm a small platform and I have people on, I'm going to expect that they're going to act like they at least want to be on there, like they at least care to talk to me. I don't expect them to come on and kiss my butt or anything like that, but I don't expect for them to come on and be aggressive or hostile when I'm asking, fair, even questions. None of the questions that they were talking to her directed it at her in particular, but she always came back with a nastiness. I could be overreacting, but to me, that's what it felt like. It felt very condescending, a lot of her responses. And then what was the other one? I guess I wanted to talk about the whole reparations thing. It's a debt that's owed. Plain and simple. If you owed my grandfather, and I can prove that you owed him, then if it was like some kind of business contract or say construction company or whatever, I could sue you and take you to court. I do not get how anybody can sit there and say, we stole a whole bunch of labor, and a whole bunch of people got super, super rich, and a whole nation was built off of this. And then we still held people back. We still did that. We still did this. We still did that. We had redlining, Jim Crow, KKK. We did all this stuff. The drug war. And I'm not just talking about with Joe Biden. People forget about with Nixon, with the heroin before that. You have one community that has been attacked from day one, and that attack has not let up, as you see with the whole protest and the Black Lives Matter movement. None of it's let up. Things have gotten a little easier. Some people have gotten some breaks here and there. But as a whole, things have not changed very much. And for many of us, things have gotten worse. Under Obama, black wealth hit its all-time low after slavery. I mean, for any time recorded after slavery, we hit our worst with Obama. So that old line, skin folk ain't kinfolk, that holds true to me right there, because Obama didn't care about trying to help black people. Just like Kamala Harris made that comment too. I ain't about to do nothing special for black people. But here's what y'all don't notice. The visa things, the H1N1, B1 visa, whatever, Kamala does care about that. And you want to know who that helps? That helps up and coming Indian immigrants. Let that sink in. But back on the Jane Elliot, to sit there and say, you're not going to do nothing. Had Obama, he wasn't going to do nothing. You have Kamala, she's not going to do nothing. And here's one thing that I want to explain. Even if we are going with, here's one thing that frustrates me. Neither Kamala nor Barack Obama grew up with the American black experience. Kamala grew up with an Indian mother, and Obama grew up with white grandparents and a white mother part of the time, an Indonesian stepfather. That's why they're so quick to sell us down the river and not really care about helping black issues. Same thing Kamala's going to do. And the same thing with this Jane Elliot. Like she said in there, it was a portion that she talked about population dropping. When I hear somebody talking about that, it almost seems like either you're trying to curry favor to protect yourself because you're scared, or who knows, you could even be in on some stuff which is unsavory. I mean, that's probably a stretch, but at this point now, the stuff which I see, when I just look at my eyes and look around, I do not trust that most of these people are benign actors, and I don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore. You can't see all the stuff that I've seen and still keep saying benefit of the doubt. Granted, I keep in mind, everybody hasn't seen all the things that I've seen. Everybody doesn't spend literally all day long, every day, researching these different issues to look at them from a different light. But I do. And whenever I see these people who are actually doing a disservice to the black community, I feel that they have to be called out. With that said, I will leave it at that. I guess I have nothing else to say. You guys have a good one. Thank you.